So Todd, give me the premise of the Terror of Hallows Eve.
All right, do we have any fans of Stranger Things out there? Okay, if you are a fan of Stranger Things, this movie is similar to Stranger Things, ramped up on Mountain Dew with a lot more monsters. The reality is this. This film is actually, when I came up with the idea and started putting this thing together, I wanted to make the ultimate homage film to the 1980s horror films. And all the creatures and all the characters that are in the film are all practically done. We only have one full CG film, or shot in the entire film where it's 100 spiders coming after Annie. And, but otherwise everything is practical. And I wanted to really make sure that I created something that had that vibe of the old Wes Craven, John Carpenter, and the old Steven Spielberg. I mean, that 1980s film I love. That's what I was raised on. That's what I wanted to create. And in doing so, we actually approached John Carpenter and have original featured music by John Carpenter in the movie, which is pretty cool because from what I understand, John Carpenter doesn't let anybody borrow his music. So that's a really cool thing. And then the other thing that I wanted to do was, long story short, when I was 13 years old, I was a nerdy little kid making monsters in my garage. And I was pulling pranks on the neighbors' kids and getting in trouble all the time, and I was not the liked kid on the neighborhood. And I was kind of small for my age. I used to go to 7-Eleven and pick up my Fangoria magazine back in 1981 so I could look at the pretty girl who was about 18 years old sitting behind the cash register that I had a crush on. After going in there time after time, I finally had the balls to talk to her, and as I did, her 18-year-old boyfriend came walking in and she made a comment that I was a cute kid. Her 18-year-old boyfriend came out, met his two other friends outside, and they beat the living shit out of me. Now, I went home that day. Mom was a single mom. She wasn't around. I went to my garage. I was bleeding all over. I went into my garage and just started sculpting a monster in my garage, and wished that I could scare these guys to death. That became the premise of our film. So Caleb here is actually playing a 15-year-old version of me in the film. And in the film, ultimately what ends up happening is the kid goes back that night to the store where the bullies were. And I actually did this is still part of the real story. Went back that night and waited for the girl to get off of her shift. And the bullies were waiting for her. And when she came out, I came out from behind the shadows and basically called all of the different bullies different names that I won't say here. And then threw a brick through the window of the lead bully's Charger. That's all in the story too. From that point on, I ran home, they chased after me, and in the movie, they make it back to the house, but now our kid has made a deal with the devil, or the spirit of Halloween, who is a character called the Trickster, played by Doug Jones. And then his house is turned into a poltergeist where each bully is brutally killed one by one. Now, I can tell you this right now, it's a really, really good movie, but the one thing that I wanted to do with this movie, and I'm only gonna take a minute and then I'll break off of this and then we can start talking. The reason why I came up with this was because years ago, when this happened to me, I kind of just put it aside and didn't really think about it. And ultimately, then when I was had my daughter who was being bullied, it kind of reminded me of what happened. And I realized what a big thing bullying is in society now. And I've really put my shit on the film, my crappy childhood, to kind of help illustrate what happened to me when I got bullied. And also at this point, I'm gonna prove a point real quick. I've done this a few times, but I'm gonna do this again because it'll prove a point to you guys. On the count of 3, I want everyone in this room to yell out the first and last name of their bully. Okay? Watch this. 1, 2, 3.
Brian Fredericks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing. With the bullying, and I'll just make this quick. The bullying is a pretty horrible thing that's happening a lot now, and it's now cyberbullying and all this other stuff, which I don't even understand, because for me back in the day, it was just getting your ass kicked and having people tell you to go to the gym and work out, and or learn jujitsu. But it's a whole different thing now, and I would say, you know, it's life-altering when somebody really goes through that experience. And I had one of the bullies from the movie actually reach out to me on Facebook a few years ago and apologize to me. And it really doesn't mean anything because it changed a lot of the way you think. And so my challenge is this. Now that I'm a little nerdy kid who grew up to be the size of a bully, I'm like the anti-bully superhero, and I'm watching out for any of the bullies out there that are pulling crap. For anyone out there that was a bully and wants to actually make up for it, keep your eyes open for other bullies and be the bully to the bully. I know it's a little risky to do, but ultimately keep your eyes out and help the underdog a little bit, because that's how you actually make back for what you did if you were a bully. And if you're a nerd turned into a bully, same thing. You have that drive. So
I think that's a great message.
I'm just going to put that out there, leave it alone at that, and I will jump back to the movie. There's all kinds of great stuff, and I want to talk to these guys because Caleb Thomas, who plays a young version of me, I never actually auditioned Caleb, which is the weirdest thing in the world, because I needed to find somebody that literally I felt would be the kind of the spirit of me back in those days. And Caleb was working on a Nickelodeon show in Spain, and I did a Skype conference call with him, and we talked for about probably 45 minutes, and by the time we were done, I was like, this guy's in. My only concern, I'm gonna give it away, my only concern was he was playing me at 15 years old, and I said, Caleb, how old are you? And he said, I'm 23. And I was like, holy crap, I hope we can pull this off. But when you see the film, he pulls off 15 so well. It's amazing. You guys will really, really dig it. So as the producers of the film also, because when you are making a film, especially independent film, when you have kids on the film, you have to pay for teachers to be there, and it is so expensive. So when I found out he was 23 years old, that probably saved us maybe 5 or 6 grand easily just by having him be older. So
Caleb, you played Todd, and I asked you this at the premiere, how you prepared for that. But first of all, I want to say, yeah, you did lots of shows with Nickelodeon. So just tell me a little bit about that.
I started off, the first major thing I booked was a series, live action adventure series called Chase Champion. We won the Synopsis Award about 6 months ago, so now we're an award-winning Nickelodeon series. Yeah, we made it.
Right.
Woo! It took 4 years to make because we kept filming small episodes, then we'd give it back to Nickelodeon. They're like, this is good, go back and make more. So we'd go make more,
Right.
Kept turning it in, and finally after 4 years, they finally put it out there. So it was an ongoing
Excellent.
process, so we won that battle. The second thing I did with Nickelodeon is I went to Spain right before we started The Terror and filmed a trilogy for them called Lost in the West. If you guys are a fan of Back to the Future, you will love this. Or your kids will love this. Someone's gonna love this. But I build a time machine, we go back in time, we mess up the timeline. And let me just say, Spain is beautiful. So if you're not going to Spain to film, just go there to visit. So that's what I've done for Nickelodeon, and it's been family-friendly films. And then I met Todd. Bye, Todd. No worries. We, like you said, we did a Skype meeting for about an hour. I returned to LA. I met him at the older studio. You guys had a different studio, so I didn't really get a feel just yet for what they were about, what their style was. I think I walked just in the entrance and then a room to do some molding, and then that was it. And then they had moved locations, and then we just started hanging out. So we never got into an office environment and sat down and was like, this is the way it's gonna be. So the only way I got to really learn what this guy was about was just hanging out. And it's probably the best way to, if you're gonna play someone, if they are still living, is to really just hang out with them and observe. It wasn't weird. It's not like I had you under a microscope or anything like that. I'm like, all right, okay, so he scratches his head when he's doing it. Like, none of that. It's just you pick up habits people have. And you see like what things like they react to emotionally, happy or sad. Not too many sad things happen, and most of this film is the young Timmy has a sad whatever attitude.
Right.
He has a tough relationship with his mom, and I come from a family with a great relationship. My parents are happily married for 25 years, so all this stuff had to be built on my imagination. And Todd helped me out because he just gave me the details on what he went through. But observing him was probably the best lesson I could learn, was just seeing what kind of person he was. and that made it easier. And I took pieces for myself, and we made Timmy.
There you go.
So
and going back to what you were saying, we were talking about, I was saying that, Todd, 6-time Oscar award winner for all these movies. Now he's transitioned into Illusion Industries, is your new company.
Right.
And he's done Smurfs 1, Smurfs 2. We just did Ouija. You're working with Blum. Jason Blum, Blumhouse, you're doing tons of stuff. So, that's so exciting. And then this, of course, is your baby, the Terror of Hallow.
Yeah, this is the baby right now.
Yeah.
So I have Juliet Landau.
Oh, awesome.
Juliet, are you there? Okay, I know you're really sick. I appreciate you calling in. I'm sorry you couldn't make it, but we have a group of people here that wanted to say hello.
Hi everyone, I'm so sorry I'm not there, although I think you're probably happy not to be exposed to what I have, because it's really dreadful.
Did you have a question for Juliet?
Juliet, I'm so sorry you're sick. It's good to hear your voice regardless. I just wanted to you give me a little bit of the premise of the character that you played in Todd's movie, The Terror of Hallows Eve.
She played two characters, actually. She played one of my creatures, and she played another character. So.
Yes.
Well, they're really, really different, because one is the head nurse, who's kind of this authoritative character, and the other was a creature that that scares the kids, which I think I did pretty well, even before the effects were put on.
Yeah, you did some. Juliet comes out of the shadows as this creature, and because Juliet was a ballerina and has all this great physical movement, she did this amazing creepy moves as she comes out of the shadows, and then we did an effect to it and made her even creepier. So it was a pretty scary scene with your stuff.
And it was really fun to get to play. It's the first time I played a nurse, and so I had a friend who actually is the head nurse in New York on a ward, and so she kind of talked me through what her days are and everything, which gave me even greater respect for what nurses go through, because the hours are insane and the workload is pretty crazy, and it's kind of emotional and intense in terms of everything that they're exposed to. So it was kind of a cool thing to get a window into that.
And tell us also too, I want to give you a plug. Tell us about the movie that you guys are making right now.
Yes.
We are making a documentary series called A Place Among the Undead, and it is the definitive documentary about vampires, myth, and pop culture. And we have the top of the A-list in the series, and so it's really amazing. We have Gary Oldman, and Tim Burton, and Joss Whedon, and Willem Dafoe, and Ron Perlman, and Charlaine Harris, and Anne Rice, and it goes on and on. And every episode also has a narrative film, a 5 to 15 minute narrative film, which the episode culminates in. So that's been really fun. We've shot one in London and one in New Orleans, and then we're working on another project as well. So it's been really busy, but I'm super excited about Todd's movie. I mean, he just did a beautiful job directing it, and I think it has it's got all of the elements. I mean, it's moving, it's scary, it's funny, and he just did an extraordinary job.
Awesome, that's really nice, thank you. And Juliet and I worked also on another film a few years ago, a kids film that we did called Monster Month. So Juliet and I have been friends for a long time, and she always jumps in and helps me. So thank you. I know you're sick, but thank you so much for calling in and taking the time.
Absolutely, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there. It sounds like it's really fun.
Yeah, we're having a blast.
Get better, Juliet.
Yeah, thanks, Juliet.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
And Annie, you've done many things. You had a mini-series with Harley Davidson's, which I thought was particularly cool. But tell me about your character in The Terror of Hallows Eve.
I played April, the girl behind the counter. Yes, she gets thrown into quite the situation, trying to survive. And Timmy, she grew up babysitting Timmy's kind of like, they have this very special connection, I think, and she's kind of got the bad boyfriend. I was drawn to April so much because she was a fighter and she was so strong, and it wasn't like, oh, I don't know what to do. It was like, okay, we're gonna solve this, we're gonna get out of this situation. And sometimes in independent horror films, it's just the girl crying, and she was so strong and like, no, we're gonna fight. We're gonna find a way out. So
yeah, she was. Tell me about Todd. You had tons and tons of creatures in this, and I don't know how much we can talk about it. It's kind of a sneak preview, but you did say she gets chased by spiders. So how was it doing that scene?
the spider tunnel.
Yeah.
Yes. I had read about it in the script and I was like, okay, how are they going to pull this off? And I showed up on set and they built a spider tunnel, a massive spider tunnel. And, you know, I'm not claustrophobic, but I reached a point where I almost had a panic attack because I was stuck in this tunnel and I realized there was this giant robotic spider behind me. And then there was about 6 men operating the camera in front of me. And there was no way out. And I kind of was like, oh my God, I kind of had a panic attack. But
It's kind of fun.
it didn't require a lot of acting because it was quite terrifying.
Yeah, well, that's what I was kind of getting at was, you know, like, how was that? Because Todd's, you know, I've been to the studios and I've, you know, had the opportunity of seeing these characters, and I was like, I remember those tunnels, and Todd hangs out in those tunnels, by the way. That's where he does all his, like, deep thinking.
I have to tell you guys too, when Annie came in, Annie's part was one of the harder parts to cast because this sounds really odd, but okay, when you have a girl coming in and you know for a good part of the time she's going to be a very strong character, and then when she is scared, she needs to be scared, really scared, right? And there's 2 problems when you have actresses that come in and try to play scared. We had maybe 20 girls come in. They all came in and they could play the cute, sweet girl, but when they had to act scared, it didn't come off as actually being scared. It kind of seemed funny. And then even the worst part about it is, if you look in the mirror and you do a scared face, it's not that attractive. So to look at a girl who's scared and making that face the whole time, I had to find somebody that not only could be believably scared, but looked pretty as being believably scared.
Oh, gosh.
So Annie was the only person that walked in and nailed the scared part of it, like, so well that literally, as she was on the ground crying and freaking out, I was like digging because like, oh my God, it's so good, it's so good. But then I felt guilty and I was like, okay, stop. I'm so sorry for making you do that for so long. And then I told her too, and I remember, I was like, I know you're gonna have to, you know, play off of puppets and people in makeup and all that kind of stuff, but I said, we'll make this as, you know, we'll give you the time to prep for it and get into the mode and everything. But we have one puppet in the film. The Trickster, who is played by Doug Jones, turns into a scarier version of the Trickster, and then a 12-foot tall giant creature version of the Trickster, which is a giant puppet, which was closing in on Annie while she was up against a door. And I remember, because the puppet's so big and there's so much going on, it's so intimidating, that I remember we finished a shot, and Annie, you were like really crying, and I felt so bad because we scared the crap out of her with this giant puppet.
Wow. No, and we talked about this before. There's scenes in there that affects other different people, and I don't know. And it's, you know, it's a sneak peek, so I don't know how much I can talk about it. But there's one scene when the Trickster changes.
Yeah. The idea too for the Trickster character, and I think you guys are gonna really, really dig it, because Doug Jones is such a great actor, and he plays so many different characters in so many different films, but they never use his voice. And I don't know why, because he's got such a great voice. They always replace it with a celebrity voice. Like, you guys saw Abe Sapien in Hellboy, yeah? It was his voice the entire time, and at the last minute they switched it out for somebody else. So when I brought Doug in, I was like, hey, we're gonna use your voice. I'm gonna use your voice because you're a great actor. And Doug is so good, but his character goes from this kind of weird, I call it sweet eerie. He's kind of this weird, big-eyed, creepy 3-foot thing that comes out from behind the shadows. But he's a trickster. He's tricking and basically making you feel like you're safe to make the deal with this devil. And then after the deal is made, ultimately he shows you his real face, which is a scary-ass version of that character. And then when you turn on him, he turns into the true version, which is our gigantic monster version of him. So
that's what got me, that change of the face. And he said it's interesting because there's different things in this film that got everybody. Like, right?
Well, if you're a fan of the 80s horror films, we have so many creatures in this and so many monsters that it will guaranteeably, if you're a fan of Pumpkinhead, you're in. If you're a fan of Aliens, you're in. If you're a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, you're in. If you're a fan of Halloween, The Fog, or The Thing, you're in. It has everything for that audience, and it's all practical, so it's really cool stuff.
And what about the John Carpenter music?
So, I was raised on John Carpenter, one of the best directors for horror in the world. And I was lucky enough to be working with his wife, Sandy King, on a project. And I built a little bit of a relationship with her so that when we finished this film, I was like, you know what, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to call her. I know she's going to tell me not a chance in hell. but I figured I have nothing to lose, and I called and I asked her, and I showed her some pictures and told her what it was, and she was really intrigued. And she called me back within 3 hours and said, "Yep, you're in. John's giving you his music." And I was like, "Oh my God!" So and I had never met him before. So I actually just met him about 3 weeks ago for the first time, and thanked him for letting me use his music. But it's really cool because, again, if you're a fan of Stranger Things, all the elements of Stranger Things, the music style, the look, the 80s, that whole thing, this movie is such an 80s driven movie because I am a product of the 80s. Everything that is the 80s is the greatest thing ever. So ultimately, I just put that in this damn movie.
You did.
But the music's there, and we have all this additional music that sounds kind of like that John Carpenter type music, so it blends in perfectly with his music.
Yeah. And Ron, you are one of the producers on this movie and family.
I'm Uncle Ron because I am Todd's uncle.
Yeah.
My
Todd,
sister is
Todd Tucker's uncle. I just had to dish on that. I did. So I always get a kick out of that. But
Well, it was fun because it became a family company.
Yes.
And we all get to decide what to do. We all, Todd and I, get to decide what to do within the company. So it makes it a lot easier for us to make things happen and get things done.
yeah, when the trust is there, especially in this industry, when the trust is there and you have your family and
I think that's the only way I'd be in this crazy business because I'm actually a CPA by trade. So I'm the big counter.
even better.
I'm the suit. I'm the one that kind of watches all the finances, and is the reason why I loved Caleb.
There you go. Yeah,
I didn't even have
that's
to
what
look at
creatives need. You know?
anything he did.
That's what we need. And the relationship between Caleb and Annie. So how is that for you guys? I know it's a basic question, but the relationship between you guys in the film. Any interesting fun moments or?
Well, Caleb is an amazing person. He's so fun. And
Yes, he is.
We had a great time shooting, and I loved his character. Like, I actually loved his character. And there was one point when we had this scene when he's buying a Monster magazine, and just the way he looked at me, I was like, oh my God, can I just give you a hug? You're so sweet. So yeah, I think
He's like, yes.
he's a great actor to work with. He gave so many gifts while shooting, and yeah, what do you have to say?
It's easy. It's nice when you get on a film set and you're supposed to have a relationship or want someone, and they're annoying. That's kind of tough. That's where real acting comes in, is having to get along on screen with somebody. But with that, it's so nice to work with someone who makes that so easy. And since I'm supposed to like you, it was very easy to like you.
Nice.
In this scene, or just in general and whatnot. So I thank you for making that a much smoother film. And we had good chemistry and whatnot, and even the gentleman who plays your boyfriend, that's one of the things that will be remarkable about this film is everyone got along on set so well. And there's a scene where they beat the living crap out of me. And then when we called cut, I'd get up, I have fake blood all over me, and we just start talking about whatever we were talking about before he called action. So that's the cool thing, is we all got along very, very well, and we all have a great friendship because of it. And
How was it working with Doug Jones and with Juliet and the whole cast?
starting with Juliet, she's the sweetest lady
Isn't she?
ever. She approached me, I believe, around when we were having lunch, and I hadn't met her yet. So she just started talking to me, and I'm like, oh, well, it's good to meet you, after we were done. And then I left, and then I saw her filming one of the scenes. I'm like, oh, I guess you're in this movie. So it was cool that she didn't, it's a smooth introduction. And the same thing with Doug, is I grew up watching Doug, such as in Hellboy and whatnot, and then getting to meet him, he's another one of the sweetest people I've ever met.
Isn't he? When I did the premiere, Doug, I interviewed him for the show, and his hands were just all in my face, and I was
His
just like,
hands never stop
I was like
moving.
this. I was
Always
like, that's
rolling.
perfect. Just don't stop doing whatever you're doing there. And I love that. And you have Christian Kane in here. I mean, there's so many. There's Eric Roberts.
We have Christian Kane from The Librarians. Christian Kane's amazing in the film too. He plays my dad, or Caleb's dad. Sorry, Caleb's dad. And the funny thing is, since this is all based on stuff that happened to me as a kid, I used my memory as the exact blueprint. Christian Kane not only looks like my dad, but is from the South. Well, let me rephrase it. Actually, it is my stepdad that he plays in the film, but my stepdad's name was Bobby Tucker, and the character's name in the film is Bobby. and he looks just like them.
Interesting.
The bullies look just like the bullies.
These bullies were good bullies.
Yeah, and everyone in this movie looks so close to the actual people that I know for a fact I'm going to be getting emails, phone calls, and probably lawyers calling me at some point. But I will say this too. These guys are amazing in the film. The one thing I will say that stands out, I think, about this film is the first half hour, 35 minutes of the film, much like an old 80s film, I took the time to do character development, and there's really no creatures in it for the first 35 minutes. The Trickster doesn't even show up until like 37 minutes in. But I took the time because the backstory of the relationship between Tim and his mom and the crush that he has on the beautiful girl that finally he's got the opportunity to save, all of this stuff, because it was real, there's some pretty hardcore moments in the movie that are very real. I put it all out there. There's alcoholism, drug addiction, family abuse, physical abuse. I mean, there's a lot of heavy shit in this movie. And it's all real, which made it kind of hard when I was filming it because I wanted the scenes to be as close to what I remembered as possible, but that made it even, like, personally a little harder for me to film it. So it was interesting to get through the film, and there were days when I had to walk away, just to get away from the set for
I'm sure.
for a few minutes, just because it got pretty intense. But the performances from not only Caleb and Annie, but from Sarah Lancaster, who is on the TV show Chuck, or was on Chuck, and she's amazing. She plays my mom. And the acting in this movie is so good, you guys, that literally the responses I got from the screening was that they could have watched the entire film just based on the characters without even any monsters, and it would have been good. So I think if you're a fan of Stranger Things, there's elements of Stranger Things and the characters and the relationships that I think are kind of in the same zone where you'll get really pulled into the characters.
Nice. So I want to take some questions from you guys. Does anybody have any questions?
The film takes place in 1981. And what happens is, at the very, very beginning of the film, it says, "In memory of Van Snowden, one of the world's greatest puppeteers." The film is filled with puppets. Van Snowden was one of the greatest puppeteers. He was H.R. Pufnstuf. He was on every Sid and Marty Krofft film. He was the head puppeteer for Tales from the Crypt. He was the bomb, and he became my best friend.
So what are we to expect for the Terror of Hallows Eve? Do we know?
The idea is that we are selling it right now. It's definitely a Halloween film, so we're expecting it to come out in either September, August, or October of this year.
Right.
If you go to the Illusion Industries or Todd Tucker Facebook pages and all that good stuff, we're going to be actually doing giveaways. So if you guys go on there and like us, you'll be instantly entered into a drawing, and we're going to do a giveaway and give some props from the film away, and give tickets away to the world premiere when we actually have the world premiere. Ultimately, we are right now just doing press. I'm actually going to go out and do a few speeches on bullying, anti-bullying stuff, and just kind of have the movie in the backdrop. But we are definitely going to be putting on a lot of magazine articles with Doug Jones and all the creatures and everything. We're going to have every genre magazine, so you'll see it all over the place.
Yeah.
We are going to be back probably for Monsterpalooza, and if we do, at that point the film will either be coming out, and at that point we're going to have a huge display with all the creatures. We may even screen the film here, depending, and at least have a really nice long extended trailer and show you guys the film.
And there's a display where?
There's actually a display for the film right now in the museum. It's I think it's as you're walking out, it's the second to last one, but it's right there. And there's actually some of the characters from the film. It's not the lead character, but lots of fun stuff. But we're going to be putting it all on the internet, so you guys, if you keep checking, and we'll be updating you and letting you know how things are moving forward.
Let's give this cast, Todd Tucker and the whole family, Ron, the family, an amazing year. Phil Thomas, Andy Reid, Julie Orlando for calling in. And again, let's switch our winners. It was our anniversary yesterday, and you guys, for them to get in here, I was getting phone calls like, from night until the morning. We're coming. So anyway, they're here, and they're looking good.
We have also some shirts, and there's also a graphic novel for the Terror's Hallows Eve that we haven't even released yet, but we're going to give a couple of those out to you guys too. So,
Yes.
And I also want to acknowledge David right here. David was our first camera operator, and he did an amazing job. And Sam right next to him, she was awesome too. And right behind them, we have we actually filmed this in our neighborhood, and Kevin and Katie back here let us invade their house and film the whole thing in their house. And we destroyed their house, and I wrote in blood, which I took about 13 or 14 coats of paint to cover. We wrote "Happy Halloween assholes" about 14 feet tall against their entire wall. So I have to give them a shout out for letting me destroy their damn house.